You can hear me as well. I'm Heather Masters. I work with state and local government, specifically at Microsoft. I'm in the customer success unit, which means that I am all about adoption. My job is to make sure that people understand how to adopt the products that we all use. And I have been focusing on Copilot for the past little while. When we got Copilot, I transitioned from SharePoint and Power BI and all of the other modern work products to focus on Copilot. So a little bit of probably some recap information for you. It's my favorite prompting recap. And then we'll talk about Copilot and Excel, some practice for Copilot and Excel. And for that, I'll go into my demo tenant, which is a GCC tenant. We run into any problems, I've got the same content in my Microsoft tenant. I can switch to that. So we've got to back up for any issues. This is my placemat slide. I think everybody should print this out, have it on their desk pad. This is the art of prompting. You can get the best results out of Copilot if you have these four elements: the goal, the context, the source, and the expectation. So in this case, our goal is we want to generate 3 to 5 bullet points. Our context is to prepare me for a meeting with client X to discuss their phase 3 brand campaign. Source is going to be focused on email and Teams chat since June. And our expectations, please use simple language so I can get up to speed quickly. So you're not always going to have these elements, especially if you're using Copilot to search for things that you forgot where they were, which I do a lot. So you won't have that source. It'll be like a conversation happened in the past few weeks about this topic with this person, find it. So the more of these elements you have, the better off you're going to be. And this happens in every app. So this may be a good example of, what you would do in M365 chat. But think about these 4 elements if you're in Excel, if you're in Word, wherever you are interacting with Copilot. So for Excel, you want to make sure that you have your content in a location where autosave can be turned on. So it can be your OneDrive, SharePoint, so you're able to, as long as you're able to turn on that autosave, be in good shape. Now, it used to be that we had to create a table to interact with Copilot, but now we don't have to have a table. You have to have a table-like range. So your data has to be clean, have some headers, doesn't necessarily have to be in a table format. Copilot, though, has some trouble understanding if your table-like format includes additional level of headers on top of this. Maybe you've got spanning multiple rows. So you want to make sure that it's as clean as possible with that data that you would like to work with, and you can have it in a table if you like. So in the ribbon, on the home page of the ribbon, you've got Copilot. It'll be on the left side there. You need to open up that chat pane, and Excel's going to give you some options of the things that it can do just by pressing a button. So you've got to create formulas, understand, to summarize using pivot tables and charts. Go deeper with Python. This just came to GCC. Those of you who are in a GCC tenant, the Python bit came out the end of May. apply color and formatting, and ask Copilot a question. So you have all of these options in Copilot for Excel. So just some examples of some formulas, some writing, and explaining, asking questions. The thing I like to mention about Copilot and Excel is that you're going to ask Copilot to do something. The great thing here is that Copilot's going to explain what it thought you meant. So when you use natural language to ask Copilot to do something, it's going to translate that into a formula, and it's going to show you the explanation of the formula and a sample of the content. You don't have to accept that if you don't agree that that's what you meant. And it doesn't change your data before you decide that you want to insert that formula. So you'll see here, it's suggested column, adding a formula in a column here. And then next we've got a question. How can I write a formula to forecast revenue over time? So we've got Copilot teaching you what to do. You can copy that little formula, but you don't have to have it insert for you, right? You might just want to learn how to do something, and that's totally fine. You can also ask about specific formulas. Say you go into an Excel file that you didn't author, but you need to understand what those calculations are doing. You can ask Copilot, what does this formula do? And it'll explain to you. So it'll bring that natural language back to you from the formula that you paste in. And then again, just a question about learning. How do I write a formula to split a column with comma separated values in separate columns? So you don't have to have Copilot actually perform the action for you. You can get the answers you need and get that data in yourself to the columns that you need. So I've got some demo data that I downloaded from your public site for the legislature. Sounds like your ledge is in session right now. So lots of active data there to demo, right? I'll show you my spreadsheet here in a second. But some samples here of things you can ask in natural language based on the columns that I had downloaded. So which members voted against the majority the most? In this case, highlight all cells with a vote of 100% in green. So my data will show, how many votes there were and how many votes that member showed up for. So that was kind of cool. And then can you create a visual of vote percent by member for members who did not have a vote percent of 100%? So these are all of the members who had less than 100% here. Get some good data there. I also was able to get some bill summaries. So can you highlight all rows containing SB in the bill column? And this is how it created that formula. So it was searching for SB in that particular column and highlighting those rows in yellow. And that meant in my case, I downloaded all the House bills, and if there were a matching Senate bill, it would highlight my column. And I had it make a pie chart, and you create a pie chart based on action descriptions. So the action descriptions was, what the next action was for that bill, whether it's going to when it was going to be signed or sent to be signed, whether it needed to go back to committee, and so whatever the next action was. And how many bills contain the term technology? So we had a couple there, just 2 bills containing the word technology. So when you're thinking about, having a large spreadsheet, you want to analyze and visualize your data. For textual data, it's really nice to be able to summarize that data. So let's say that you've requested feedback from people and you've got a formula, or you're ingesting data that you've gathered through a form. Here's a summary of your column with that text. And so you can of course take all of that data, you can visualize it in multiple ways, but you can also get a text summary of that content. And if you'd like to create a chart, you'll see here that you can analyze the data in your table range, have that chart be generated, and decide, you would like to add that to a new sheet. What I love about this, and I'll demo it in Excel, what I love about this is that I don't have to go in and say, create a pivot table, and remember where to create a pivot table from my ribbon or anything like that. I can just ask it to create a chart. By creating that chart, it's creating a pivot table. And then I get to go into the pivot table, make some changes if I would like, but it's already there for me. So it's really nice to skip a couple of steps there. And then we've also got the option to, even though this may not be an action that's particularly hard in Excel, to color code your data. If you would like Copilot to do that, apply the following to cells in this particular column. You give it a fill color, a font color, and you've colorized your file without much effort at all. So this advanced visualizations with Python, you'll see here in this particular example, we've got details about basketball. And so we've got a shot chart. And we've got all of this data about basketball. You can ask Copilot, can you plot this data on a basketball court? It's going to generate the Python for you. I don't write Python. I appreciate that Copilot can do it for me, but it's going to show you what it looks like, which, that's great that it's showing me. I'm not a programmer, so I can look at it and, appreciate that it can actually generate this shot chart detail on this basketball court. It's pretty cool. I have to think about some use cases for you with your data that you might want to visualize, not necessarily on a basketball court. But that Python is a real enhancement there. So when you're thinking about your use cases, in my case here, I've got a spreadsheet with some information about voting. So district name, total votes, eligible votes. So it's going to do a scatter plot, actual votes with majority %, and give me a little scatter plot of the data. And sometimes you'll ask Copilot for things and it doesn't you may not know that you're going to ask for something it's going to generate Python with. And it'll give you the Python anyway. You don't have to specifically ask for it. So we've got some use cases, best prompts for data analysis and budgeting, compliance tracking, and reporting. So for data analysis, summarize the trends in this data set over the past 12 months. We can use that to identify patterns and anomalies in our time series data. Create a pivot table showing average response time by department. Or use Python to calculate correlation between service usage and satisfaction scores. The budgeting side. Highlight departments that exceed the quarterly budget. Generate a chart comparing actual versus projected spending for each program. Forecast next quarter's budget needs using historical data. And for compliance tracking, list all entries missing required compliance fields, summarize compliance status by agency, and flag any overdue items. So I will show you those use cases in my Excel along with this one for reporting. So generate a monthly report summarizing key metrics and trends, and create a dashboard showing KPIs for public service delivery. So let me go over to Excel here. I'll be doing that in the browser for my GCC tenant. Here. So I'm sure that your data has many more rows, but if I demo this way, then you move this over. So if I demo this way, then you can easily check the visual and know that Copilot has done the right thing. So we can trust it later. Make this a little bigger here so it's easier to see. So you can see I've got of those 4 different use cases that are use case categories. I've got these little sheets. I'm going to go for my data analysis prompt here. Paste this in. All right, so I'm on the data analysis page.
Question, can you highlight a range of cells and then enter in a prompt in Copilot and it would only answer the question through the range that you highlighted?
Yes, so if you do it that way, you can see that it's telling me there that it's looking at data range A1 to D6. That's where the only data is. But let's say you have different places on your spreadsheet that have, different sets of data. If you do it that way, just highlight the area that you'd like, and it will repeat back to you what range it's looking at.
Can you do it across tabs?
Can you select data across tabs?
Like can I analyze if my data is like I have different tabs, like each tab for a unit, right?
No, so you've got to have a table-like range to be able to analyze.
So it has to be on the same.
It has to be on one tab.
Excuse me. So impressively, it has the ability to project, to do projections. Is there any transparency into the algorithm or math that's behind that?
Yes, so when it interprets your query, it's going to give you back the formula that it created. So it's going to tell you what it understood, so you can decide if that was quite right,
Great.
And that's great for you, because you don't want Copilot to make changes to your content before you decide if that's the right thing to do. And then you also get to see the reasoning of the process. So you learn a little bit along the way. Sometimes demoing the browser takes a little longer here.
So what you're asking here, you're asking it to analyze for 5 years, but I don't see a timeline on your data. So how does it know what the timeline is? 'Cause I can't even see it.
That's a great question. Let me go, I think I have a better. I have to just copy the. And that may be why I'm struggling here. I can't analyze the trends in emergency response times because of the question that I have.
But this one is not even response time, it's on, just a minute.
Select that. This would be a little easier for it to understand. And nobody exceeded.
It's not good result.
Which is first quarter.
There, I'm going to. Grab a more real world data set. To right there. All right, so this is a download sent from the General Assembly. You can see I've already used Copilot a little bit. In my slides where I asked it to highlight the content for where there was a matching Senate bill. So I have all of those highlighted. Then I created, which we saw in my demo there, I created a pie chart based on that action description. I'm going to pass that again here. Show you what Copilot says. So here's my pie chart. It's going to say I scroll up a little bit. I analyzed the data. So all of the data here, and here's what I found. And it's given me a pie chart, fine. So this is the description though of the data. So created a pie chart based on the action description. For example, ref to come on rules and operations in the Senate has 684 occurrences. Ref to come on rules calendar and operations in the House has 301. See the chart above for more details. So when I say add to a new sheet, then it's going to create that new sheet. Start here. A little bigger. And you can see that it's giving me the data where it's got that action description. It's done the count of each action. Now, if I come over to the chart, here's my 684 in that blue, 301. We've got a lot of other action descriptions here. Those are the largest.
Find that and just say, give me the top 10 in the chart.
So, find which data?
Refine your chart and say, just chart the top 10.
Oh,
Make it a little more readable.
sure. So because you could refine it in natural language, because it's a pivot chart. Okay, close that little window. Here we go. Because it's a pivot chart, you could do that. I could come over here. Okay, find that back up. So since I know that it's counting here, those top 10 action descriptions. So sometimes Copilot's not going to do it for you, but it'll give you the steps to do it. So here's a step-by-step guide. Follow, create a helper column to count the occurrences, sort the data by the count descending order, select the top 10, and create a pie chart. Now, if I go back here, work on my chart. Got my count. Ideally, I would sort by those top descriptions, just take that data, copy and paste it to a new sheet. And then I would have those top 10 that I wanted to get. And so we've got a date column or action date. Those sponsors. Work with the action description of it. Action type, House or Senate. Let's go. Highlight the action dates prior to today. Doesn't like that one. Still working on it. So this is sample data. I did take the divisions from your public data on your website, but everything else is generated by Copilot to make sample data. So these application names, the reported costs, project start date and end date, et cetera, these are all completely made up. But this is a sample of IT application projects that you might have going on. I'm going to ask Copilot some questions about this. You can see we've got total reported cost here and numbers of users targeted. So I'm going to ask which applications cost the most per user. It's looking at my data range. Data range here, but so I've done this before. You can see here, maybe not exactly the same question. But I did ask Copilot some of reported total cost by division. So leaving the applications out, just totaling everything by division, what the most expensive projects were out there by division. So once you've got that pivot table, say you want to change it up a little bit, and I love it that I don't have to, create a pivot table manually, select the data. It's already done that for me. If I wanted to include application name, in my pivot table, all I have to do is select it, and then it's going to change my chart as well. Ugly chart there. We can change our chart type to make that a little nicer. Also include my fields here. In this case, I've got, my vendor row now. And if I go to chart. About it. Let's see what if it's still thinking over here. Okay, yeah. It was still thinking, it says it's having some trouble right now. So a couple of other things that you can do with Copilot. You can ask questions. How do I sum values based on criteria? You can apply that color and formatting. You can understand. You can have Copilot suggest a formula. Let's see if it's going to respond to that. Doesn't have a suggestion right now. That came back quicker though. So we can also show data insights. Now, show data insights is going to come back with what it thinks the most important thing in this data is. So, total reported cost by vendor is what it's giving me. And it's going to give me the total cost, and I can add that to a new sheet. And I've got a new chart here. Yes.
I have a question. The gentleman had mentioned something about tabs and how you can only work on one tab. So let's just say you have like two tabs representing two different fiscal years of data, right?
Right.
And you wanted to do some type of comparative analysis. What would be the best method to be able to do what you need to do, considering you can only use one tab at a time? Does that make
Right. You
sense?
can have a roll-up page to have sets of data on one sheet, so you can select that in a table range. That's probably the best way to do it, and Copilot can help with that. At least, you know, you can ask Copilot how to do that. It might do it for you, or it might just tell you how to do it. Sometimes it's not going to do what you want it to do, and it'll just give you the steps.
Okay, thank you.
I had a question as well.
Yes.
So we use large worksheets like 80 columns or 200 columns and like a little less than a million lines.
Yes.
How long does Copilot take to go through it? I mean, these things on a locally installed Excel take up to 20-30 minutes to open.
To open.
Yeah. Sometimes more.
I guarantee you'll have better luck if you are, on your network in Excel. So I'm in the browser and I'm on Wi-Fi. So I think, it would be a little slower experience for me. But make sure you're plugged in on the network when you have those really large files in Excel and not in the browser. You probably can't open files that big in the browser anyway.
Yes. But on an average, like how long should I expect Copilot to analyze data that big? Like this took about 5-7 minutes, let's say. On a decently fast network. I'm not saying a Wi-Fi network for
Sure. When you ask a question of Copilot, it takes 6 steps it's going through. Typically, that 6 steps is completed in less than a second. Now, if you're punching some really serious numbers and it's looking at a lot of data, I would anticipate that, it might take a couple minutes to come back to you, just depending on the complexity of the request. But for something really complex, it might be generating some Python, and once it does that, it's pretty fast.
Were you looking to maybe having it so it gives you a percentage? You know, like you do other things, said, 30%, complete this, time goes to 70%. Would that be maybe something that function coming down in the future for that? Because it is true, it's if you look at it and it's a large file like the gentleman said, and it's, you know, it says it's only at 20%, you wait 5 minutes and it's only now at 30%. You know, you can just go down somewhere and talk to someone, ask a question or do something else instead of just watching it take on the screen. That's why I was wondering with this Copilot, just here with your demonstration, you know, a lot of things are just taking a long time. We had no clue, like, is it really, like, some of them even said it can't do it, you know, after a while said it can't do it. But if you're saying this typically takes 6 steps to do whatever it looks at all the data to calculate it, why can't the Copilot then say, okay, we're only at, you know, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50%. And then that way, whoever is waiting for this data can utilize their time doing something else, especially if it's a large file, like the gentleman said back there.
I think that's.
I'm just saying, why, obviously, no offense, whenever there's updates, right, Microsoft, it does say that. It says, hey, you know.
That's true.
So why don't we have that also on this Copilot as well?
I haven't checked the roadmap for that, but I think that that's a really good suggestion. Gives you that time back that you can be doing other things, not waiting and watching the page. So yeah, that would be something interesting.
Like make a phone call.
Make a phone call, yes.
Is there a limitation on how big your data set can be when you're using Copilot? Because I imagine if you're looking at, I don't know, 1 million records, probably better off putting it in a back-end database than keeping it in Excel. I mean, just for.
Yeah, there is a limitation. I don't want to tell you the wrong thing though. Let me check that out. Okay. It's Copilot about that. All right, that, Copilot can analyze, 2 million cells. So you'll have to divide, just multiply your rows and your columns to see if you've got 2 million cells, but, that's the limitation right now.
Yeah.
Other questions? We are 1 minute from our time here.
If you get Copilot to say, take that pie chart and place it into a PowerPoint presentation or a Word document?
Absolutely, just copy and paste that in.
Oh, the print, okay.
When you do that from Excel to PowerPoint, it's gonna give you that table in the PowerPoint. So, it works smart. Well, thank you so much for your time.